Hey, what's going on, guys? Mike Patrick, and in this video I want to talk about how as millennials we have to decide exactly what happiness, peace, liberty, and fulfillment is to us. And once we clearly can define what that means to us, then we need to figure out how to go about creating the conditions that will allow us to experience peace, happiness, liberty, and fulfillment. And in order to do that, I believe we have to communicate more effectively to generations that are older than us. Now, there's pretty much two generations over top of us at this point. You have the baby boomers and the Generation Xers. Baby boomers, I believe, are somewhere like in there, anywhere from 60 something on up to maybe 80, maybe. The point is, for the most part, the baby boomers are the oldest generation in significant numbers. Then Generation Xers, then millennials, and then the generation after us. I'm not sure what they call them. The point is, as millennials, we are the most important generation at this particular point in time, because we are at the ages where we are at the tender ages where we are just old enough to be on the brink of inheriting the country or the world, but yet we're just young enough to where many things have to be will decide where we go from here as a country and as a world, okay? And we are the future leaders or elders, I guess you could say, of the world. So we have to, like I said, effectively communicate with those who are older than us about what we need to do together, working together, in order to make the world, to make sure everything runs smoothly, I guess you could say, or we are successful in the future, not just as a country, but as just the world in general. All right? Because the generations before us are not going to be here forever, and they're going to have to pass the baton. Right? Now, the thing is, where the issue naturally is going to be, what the issue is going to be, and what it has been, you know, and you know, the hurdle that we have to get over is we have stubborn older generations, okay? And then you, as millennials and as the younger generations, based on circumstances, we aren't effectively, you know, communicating what we need in order to transition, okay? And that's our fault. Now, like I said, the way that we were socially, I guess you could say, engineered, you know, that's not necessarily our fault, but that's the result. You know, we are the result of our upbringings, okay, in our society. So you can't expect people to help you do anything if you can't clearly define what it is that you want to do in the first place. So that's our fault, okay? And then on the other hand, if you were able to do that, and if you did do that, then those older generations have to be receptive, because at the end of the day, they're passing the baton to us, whether they like it or not. So they can't dictate how the future is going to be, because they're not going to necessarily be here to live under those conditions and circumstances, right? So I think older generations have to just come to grips with the fact that change is inevitable, and things will change, and things have changed, and things are changing. And as time go on and more of the older people are passing on, then things are going to definitely change even more, based on the fact that people who may still be supporting an old way of doing things will no longer be here to uphold that, you know? So I think as parents, and whatever, older family members, anybody, not speaking personally, this is in general, you have to realize that, okay, you have to see what you're dealing with, know that it's different, and stop trying to make stop trying to make a dog a cat and a cat a dog, if that makes sense. So stop trying to make something conform to something that is just can't be. It's not going to be, okay? So we have to accept the fact that millennials and on down are different generations, and we have to create models that are going to be conducive to making sure we thrive and we are successful, okay? Because we are who we are. It's nothing that we can do about our makeup and who we truly are. You can't try to make somebody something that they're not, trying to follow an old format. So the old format may have been fine for the previous generations due to the fact that the way that they were, their makeup, their social conditioning, their upbringing, okay, their social upbringing, it was conducive, the way that they are and the way that things operated was conducive to who they were. And so the reason you see a lot of the issues that we're having in the country and in the world is because we're trying to fit new things into an old model, okay? You have to be able to change, with change, with natural change. So if people are just being born differently, and being socially constructed differently, then that's just what it is. Instead of trying to be stubborn and trying to trying to fit a huge ball into a small basket, so to speak, just create a larger basket that the ball can fit in. Makes sense? So with that said, there is people who's going to try. Now people are certain people are invested in the way things are at any particular point in time, and so therefore they don't want to let it go. But what happens is when you're outnumbered, you're outnumbered. So if I did a video a while ago talking about think about how many kids are autistic and things like that now, and it seems like as time go on, more and more children are being born autistic. So if you think about it, how could you think that society would be the same in 30 years when the children are being born differently? So why would you still try to follow a format knowing what the future beholds? Isn't that selfish? If you know you have a grandchild, if you know you have a child, and you know what their circumstances are, okay? What do you look like trying to set them up for a lifestyle that you may have lived in the way that you may have survived or got by? How can you keep the model the same like that? You're setting them up for failure, because you know that they cannot thrive under those circumstances. So you have to change the circumstances. And the thing about it is, it shouldn't really matter to you anyway, because you're not going to be here. If you are, for example, if you're a baby boomer in your 70s, right? 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be. I'm not saying because people do, you do have centenarians and things like that. But let's just say 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be here in 30 years, 35 years. So and then you know, so the thing is, you have to not be stubborn. If you really being logical and rational, you'll say, okay, my grandchild's not like me, but this is I have to leave the world to them. So what can I do to put them in position to be successful, you know, um, in the world that they inherit. Okay. And so for us as millennials, why we appear to have a hard time as a collectively as a generation is because, you know, we are also trying to fit into a model that is not for us. Okay. So you have, you know, just, and then the thing is, naturally you have a propensity to follow leadership and elders, because, you know, if these were your parents, if you know, you're used to taking orders and doing what your parents tell you to do, or older people, or superiors, right? So what happens is you find yourself in a position where you may be an adult chronologically, right? But you've been raised in a way where you don't, you know, you're kind of on the fence about things. You don't really know what you want, okay? And you're kind of unstable, and therefore you seek their leadership, but at the same time you can't, when they respond, the format and what their advice and the way of doing things is not conducive to who you really are. So therefore there's the conflict. So because you're trying to follow that format, and it is not conducive to you, but the only reason you're trying to follow that format is because at the same time you're undecided, okay, or on the fence about, you know, you're still trying to figure things out, okay? So that's why I said we have to, and we have to definitely figure things out so we can be clear and concise on what we want, you know? So we have to really sit back and think about what peace, happiness, liberty, freedom, what all these things mean to you and what they are to you, so then you can find ways to get there. Because the reason why a lot of millennials are depressed, the reason why a lot of millennials have all these different negative labels tagged on them, is because they're trying to, like I said, fit into a model that is just not conducive for to them being happy, okay, and in liberty and in peace. All right, your soul is calling out for a different way, okay, and the reason you're not getting there, you know, is because, or it appears that you're not getting there, is because you are confused on what those things, you haven't defined what makes you experience, though, what makes you able to experience those things, okay? So you're letting somebody else take the wheel, and they're taking the wheel, but they're taking the wheel and they're driving you to places and driving you around in ways that is making you uncomfortable, and it's going to make you unsuccessful as far as having a peace of mind, okay, and being happy and fulfilled in life. All right, so you have to figure out what you want and then demand it from there, okay? And the reason I say this is because this is not a matter of like, it's just an opinion thing and this is your stance. I mean, it is my opinion and my stance, but what I'm saying is, this is not a thing where, let's say, the world is 10% this, 10% this, 10% this, and, you know, and therefore, you know, who's to, you know, we have to accommodate everybody, right? Or in the majority, and some people are going to win, some people are going to lose. But this is a thing where most people, this is the way that people are being born now and have been being born, you know, millennials on down, you know, this is going to be the majority. So you have to accommodate the majority. And everybody's not going to be happy, no. But wouldn't you rather have the majority happy as opposed to a small minority? Because eventually that's going to negatively affect the majority anyway. All right, guys, hopefully this was a helpful video, and you know, at some point